Hey everyone. Welcome to AfriHeart Stories, your go-to spot for African tales. Don't forget to like, subscribe and drop a comment. Now sit back and enjoy. Zuri Okoye sat on the cracked plastic chair in the tiny job agency office, wringing her hands as the aging fan squeaked overhead. The room smelled of ink, desperation and overbrewed coffee. Across the desk, Mrs. Madaki, the agency owner, adjusted her bifocals and stared at Zuri with an amused tilt of her lips. "You do realize which job you're asking about, right?" she said slowly. Zuri nodded, her face calm but firm. "Yes. The Marshall residence. Nanny position." Mrs. Madaki chuckled, a dry, knowing sound. "My dear, are you trying to get a paycheck or a death sentence? That house chews nannies up like popcorn. 23 and counting. Some didn't even last a day." "I'll take it," Zuri repeated, her voice quiet but steady. "I need the job." Mrs. Madaki raised a brow. "I've seen girls like you. Big heart, tiny stomach for trouble. That family doesn't need love, they need an exorcist." Zuri smiled faintly. "Maybe I'm both." After a pause, Mrs. Madaki sighed and pushed a folder across the desk. "Your funeral." Zuri left the agency with nothing but her purse, a heart full of silent prayers, and the address of one of the wealthiest, yet most feared families in the city, the Marshalls. The Marshall mansion towered like something out of a movie. Wrought iron gates glinted in the sun, and an automated voice barked through the intercom, "State your business." "Zuri Okoye," she said, her voice steady despite the butterflies. "I'm the new nanny." A beat. Then the gates creaked open. As she walked up the long driveway, her eyes flicked over the manicured lawns, the spotless marble fountain, and the towering pillars that framed the entrance. Two housekeepers peeked through the curtains and whispered. When the front door opened, a short, tight-lipped butler greeted her. "You're the replacement?" he asked, unimpressed. "Follow me. And good luck." Zuri was led into a grand foyer where three children stood lined up like soldiers. Cairo, the oldest at 10, wore a scowl like armor. His arms were folded, his dark eyes sharp and calculating. Lila, 8, clutched a tablet but never looked up. Jamie, 5, sat on the stairs, silently plucking feathers from a pillow with unnerving calm. "Kids," the butler announced. "This is your new nanny." "Zuri." Cairo sneered. "She won't last." Jamie didn't even look up. Zuri knelt down to their level. "Hello. I'm not here to replace anyone. Just to meet you." Lila snorted softly. "You're wasting your time." Zuri smiled at them gently. "Maybe. But I'm still going to try." Her room was small but elegant, tucked in the east wing far from the kids' rooms. She barely had time to set her bag down before chaos began. By lunch, her bed was soaked with orange juice. By evening, her shoes were missing. By nightfall, she tripped over a wire strung across the hallway and almost cracked her head open. Most nannies would have packed and run by now. But Zuri calmly cleaned the mess, found a pair of socks, and whistled a tune while mopping juice off her mattress. From the second floor, Cairo peeked through the banister. "Why isn't she yelling?" he muttered. "She will," Lila said, eyes still on her tablet. "They always do." At dinner, Zuri ate alone in the kitchen. The cook, Mama Beezy, gave her a pitying glance. "You're brave, I'll give you that," Mama Beezy said, slicing plantains. "Those children, they've been through things. Things a child shouldn't." Zuri set down her fork. "I don't mind a challenge." "They're not a challenge. They're hurting," the woman said softly. "And their father?" "He's here but not really." Zuri looked toward the grand dining room. Laughter echoed faintly, from a TV, not the family. She'd seen his photo in news articles. Keenan Marshall. Tech billionaire. Widower. Cold as winter steel. "Thank you, Mama Beezy," Zuri said. "I'll do my best." The cook gave a sad smile. "Best won't be enough here. But maybe heart will." Later that night, Zuri found Jamie hiding behind the curtain in the hallway. She didn't call his name. She didn't ask what he was doing. She simply sat on the floor a few feet away and pulled a small picture book from her tote. Slowly she began to read aloud, soft, warm and patient. Jamie didn't move. But he didn't run either. As the mansion quieted into night, Cairo lay in bed staring at the ceiling. He whispered to Lila through the intercom they'd rigged between rooms. She didn't scream. Yet. She read Jamie a story. Lila was silent for a moment. "Whatever. She'll leave." Cairo clenched his jaw. "Let's make sure she does." Zuri sat in bed that night, looking out the window at the moonlit garden. The ache in her muscles couldn't compete with the fire in her chest. She'd seen kids like this before, brash, angry, testing the world. She had been one. When her mother died, no one stayed. They all gave up. But she didn't. And she wouldn't give up on these kids either. Not even if it broke her. The next morning, Zuri stood at the top of the grand staircase, clutching a clipboard and a quiet prayer. She'd barely stepped onto the polished marble floor when a football zoomed past her head and slammed into a vase. Crush. She turned to see Cairo staring her down, arms folded. Oops. I'm sure your father will be thrilled to replace that, she said, stepping over the shards. He won't notice, Cairo said, brushing past her. Zuri spotted Lila sprawled on the living room couch, scrolling on a tablet with her earbuds in. Good morning, Lila. Lila didn't look up. Would you like breakfast? I'm fasting. Zuri smiled. For what cause? No cause. Just don't feel like talking to you. Fair enough. Then came Jamie barefoot, dragging a mop behind him like a lost sword. He looked at Zuri with eyes too empty for his age, then turned around and disappeared into the hallway without a word. Zuri exhaled slowly and followed the sounds of breakfast. The kitchen buzzed with warmth and activity. Mama Beezy was frying eggs, humming a gospel tune. Morning, Mama Beezy, Zuri greeted. You're still here? The cook blinked. You must be mad. I like eggs. And chaos. Mama Beezy chuckled, pointing to a tray. Cairo only eats toast with butter, nothing else. Lila wants papaya but only if it's chilled. Jamie won't eat unless you sit beside him. I'll manage, Zuri nodded. The tray clinked with porcelain as she carried it to the dining room. The children were scattered like chess pieces. None of them moved when she entered. Breakfast, she called gently. Cairo turned the other way. Lila didn't blink. Jamie peeked, then returned to scribbling on the floor with crayons. Zuri set the plates down anyway. Then she sat and quietly poured herself a cup of tea. For 5 minutes no one spoke. But slowly Lila crept over to inspect the papaya. Cairo grabbed a toast slice and muttered, "It's burnt." Jamie sat close but didn't eat, until Zuri offered her tea. Then he took a bite. Small victories. That afternoon, Zuri finally caught a glimpse of Keenan Marshall. He descended the stairs in a tailored suit, phone pressed to his ear, voice sharp. I said I want the report by midnight. And move the New York call to Thursday, he barked, eyes never leaving the screen. As he turned the corner he nearly bumped into Zuri. He looked up, paused. You must be the new one. Zuri. Hello. His eyes flicked over her with polite detachment. Good luck. And then he was gone. The lion's den indeed. Zuri woke to find her mattress soaked. Again. She peeled off the bedsheets, sticky with orange juice, and noticed her favorite slippers missing. She opened her wardrobe, only to find her blouse tied into 27 knots and her underwear hung like flags across the curtain rod. She sighed. No anger. Just routine. Downstairs the children were already plotting their next move. She didn't yell, Cairo grumbled, pacing. We need to go bigger. We could flood her bathroom? Lila offered. No, Jamie whispered suddenly. Put ants in her shoes. Genius. Cairo grinned. Later that day, Zuri stepped into her room and felt the unmistakable sting of bites on her ankle. She calmly slipped off her shoes, checked them, and shook out a small pile of crawling ants. The kids listened through the vents. She's gonna scream, Cairo said. But Zuri didn't. Instead, she placed the shoes in the sink, ran cold water, then sat on the bed and hummed a lullaby softly. And I will carry you even when storms rise. Jamie froze. His fingers twitched. That's Mommy's song, he whispered. Cairo's brow furrowed. Lila looked uncomfortable. They didn't expect softness. Zuri didn't retaliate. She left notes on their doors that evening. Cairo, you're smart. I hope you use that brilliance for more than pranks someday. Lila, I found your drawing in the trash. It's beautiful. Jamie, I heard you humming. I love that song too. No punishments. No threats. Just connection. And that scared them more than any discipline could. That night, Cairo declared a rebellion. No bedtime, he shouted from the hallway. Zuri, in pajamas and holding a book, didn't argue. Okay, she said simply. Cairo blinked. Wait, what? You're not tired. That's fine. But I'm going to read a story on the couch. Join me if you want. He didn't move. But Lila peeked out. Zuri began reading anyway. Her voice was calm, rhythmic. Once upon a time, there was a boy who didn't want anyone to know how sad he was, so he wore a helmet of anger. Jamie crept in and curled up next to her. Lila leaned against the wall. Cairo sat at the bottom of the stairs. By the last page, 3 heads were drooping. Jamie had his thumb in his mouth, eyes fluttering. Lila mumbled, "I wasn't listening." Cairo whispered, "What happens next?" Zuri smiled. "We'll see tomorrow." At midnight, Keenan walked past and froze. The kids were all asleep in the living room, peacefully for once. Zuri stood, covering them with a blanket. He didn't say a word, but he watched longer than necessary. The next morning, Zuri made pancakes. Not just any pancakes, but special ones. Jamie's had a smiling face. Lila's was shaped like a butterfly. Cairo's spelled his name in syrup. She placed them on the table and stepped back. Lila gasped softly. "Is that my name?" Jamie giggled. Cairo narrowed his eyes. "What's this?" "Breakfast," Zuri said. "Because I see you." Cairo picked up the plate and flipped it. Syrup splattered across the table. Jamie stopped chewing. Lila frowned. Zuri wiped the table slowly. "I know it's not about the food," she said. Cairo stood confused. "What?" "I know anger protects you. I used to live behind it too." That stopped him. Zuri picked up his plate and offered him a fresh one. "Try again." He sat back down, silently, and ate every bite. In the kitchen, Mama Beezy peeked in. "Did that boy just eat?" Zuri nodded. "He'll eat again tomorrow?" "Girl, you're doing voodoo," Mama Beezy muttered, grinning. Later that day, Jamie tugged Zuri's sleeve. He held out a crumpled drawing, a messy heart with stick figures inside. "Us," he whispered. Zuri knelt and hugged him tightly. "I love it." The mansion buzzed with quiet tension. Zuri was in the garden with the children, helping Lila identify herbs while Jamie made dirt angels and Cairo threw pebbles into the fountain. Everything froze when the glass doors opened and a tall figure stepped out. Keenan Marshall. Immaculate suit. Cold presence. And a frown deep enough to silence thunder. "Zuri," he said curtly. "A word." The kids scattered, Cairo dragging Jamie off like a guard evacuating a soldier. Zuri stood and dusted her hands. "Yes, Mr. Marshall?" He gestured to the patio table. "Let's talk." They sat, sunlight dappling between them. "I understand you make custom pancakes. With syrup art." Zuri smiled slightly. "Yes." They liked it. "This isn't a daycare. It's a home that needs order. Structure." She nodded slowly. "I agree. But it also needs healing. You can't build structure on broken ground." He narrowed his eyes. "And you believe you're qualified to fix that?" Zuri met his gaze without flinching. "Not to fix. Just to care." Keenan leaned back. "You're different." "I hope so." He stood, brushing invisible lint from his jacket. "We'll see how long that lasts." But he didn't sound so sure anymore. Later that evening, Zuri walked past Keenan's office. The door was open. Inside, he was watching the security cam footage from the garden. His eyes lingered on Jamie smiling. On Lila laughing. On Cairo helping his brother tie a shoelace. His jaw clenched as if the softness hurt more than silence. Cairo had been unusually quiet all day. Zuri noticed the way he flinched when the school van pulled up. How he shoved his art folder deep into his backpack. How he refused to show anyone his homework. After lunch, Zuri tidied up the playroom. Cairo had left his notebook open on the couch. She didn't mean to pry, but a sketch caught her eye. It was a child kneeling beside a gravestone. Tears fell like waterfalls from hollow eyes. Her breath caught. Zuri gently closed the book and went to find him. He was in the backyard throwing rocks at a tree. "You're not supposed to look through my stuff," he said as soon as she approached. "I didn't mean to." "But Cairo." "Forget it." She sat on the grass beside him. "Do you want to talk about her?" He turned his back. "Nobody talks about her. Not even him." "That's not fair to you." "I don't care. She left us." "No, she didn't. She died, Cairo." He flinched. "Death isn't leaving. It's being taken." He wiped his nose roughly on his sleeve. Zuri whispered, "I lost my mom too. I remember being so angry I couldn't breathe." He stared at her. "Did you hate everyone too?" "I did. Until someone stayed." Silence. Then a whisper. "Are you staying?" She smiled. "I'm not going anywhere." That night, Cairo slipped a new drawing under her door. It was a house, with a window glowing from the inside. Zuri framed it beside her bed. Lila had mastered the art of silence. She floated through the mansion like a ghost, quiet, eyes always on her tablet, never letting anyone in. Zuri, determined to reach her, searched the attic for inspiration. She found a dusty trunk filled with old toys. At the bottom was a broken porcelain doll, cracked arm, missing eye, tangled hair. She remembered Mama Beezy mentioning Lila used to love dolls. Before the funeral. Before she'd thrown them all away. Zuri took the doll, cleaned it, and carefully repaired the cracks. She replaced the eye with a button and brushed the hair into braids. That night, she placed the doll gently on Lila's bed and left. Hours passed. Zuri heard nothing. But around midnight, she passed Lila's door and peeked in. Lila was asleep, curled around the doll like a lifeline. A single tear stained the pillow. The next morning, Lila didn't say a word. But she handed Zuri her tablet. On the screen was a drawing, a little girl hugging a doll beneath a tree. Underneath it, "Thank you." Zuri smiled. "She's beautiful." Lila looked away, biting her lip, but her ears turned pink. Later in the garden, Lila stood beside Zuri while Jamie played. "Do you think she'd be proud of me?" she asked suddenly. Zuri turned, surprised. "Your mom?" Lila nodded. Zuri knelt. "I know she would." Lila wiped her eyes. "Even with the way I acted before? Especially then. You survived." That night, the doll had a place at the dinner table. No one questioned it. Jamie hadn't spoken a word since his mother's funeral. Doctors called it trauma-induced silence. Zuri called it heartbreak. That afternoon, rain pounded the windows and silver sheets. The power flickered. The mansion felt like a memory, cold and echoing. Zuri lit candles and gathered the children near the fireplace. "Let's make up a story," she said. Cairo groaned. "Stories are for babies." "I was thinking you could be the villain." He perked up. "Go on." Lila smiled. Jamie sat close, his fingers on her knee. Zuri began weaving a tale, about a wizard who couldn't speak, but had the power to calm storms with his heart. Lila added a flying bird who sang lullabies. Cairo made the villain a sarcastic dragon with excellent fashion sense. They laughed. Then Zuri began humming softly, an old Igbo lullaby. Jamie froze. His eyes widened. Then, barely above a whisper, he said, "That's Mommy's song." The room fell silent. Cairo's spoon clinked to the floor. Lila's hand flew to her mouth. Zuri held back tears. "Yes, it is." Jamie nodded and crawled into her lap. "I missed her," he whispered. Zuri hugged him tight. "We all did, baby." Mama Beezy was in the hallway, hands trembling over her chest. Keenan stood behind her, speechless. Keenan sat alone in his office, the flickering security cam frozen on Jamie's face as he said those words. "That's Mommy's song." Keenan hadn't heard his son speak in over a year. He rubbed his temples. Then he picked up the phone. "Cancel the board meeting. All of it. I need to be home." He went searching for Zuri. She was in the kitchen pouring tea. He stood in the doorway. "May I?" Zuri looked up. "Of course." He sat across from her, uncharacteristically quiet. "I saw what happened." "Jamie." Zuri nodded. I didn't know the song. I never learned it," Keenan said, eyes down. Zuri reached for the teapot. "That's okay. He remembered for both of you." Keenan took a sip. "They're changing. I see it." Zuri smiled. "So are you." He exhaled. "What do they need, Zuri?" She looked him straight in the eye. "Not a nanny." He swallowed hard. "Then what?" "A father." That evening, for the first time, Keenan knocked on Cairo's door. "I'm here. Just, if you want to talk." Cairo said nothing. But he didn't close the door either. Small steps. The aroma of roasted chicken filled the Marshall mansion. In the dining room, the long table was set, not by staff but by Zuri and the kids. Jamie placed the folded napkins, Lila arranged candles, and Cairo argued over whether corn belonged next to rice. Zuri wiped her hands on her apron. "All right, team. Last step." The room quieted. "Are you sure he'll come?" Lila asked. Zuri nodded. "I invited him. That's all we can do." At 7 p.m. sharp, footsteps echoed down the stairs. Keenan appeared, wearing jeans and a navy polo. No phone. No laptop. Just them. He paused at the doorway. "I wasn't aware we had guests." "You're the guest," Zuri smiled. "Come. Sit." He hesitated, then walked in and sat at the head of the table. Cairo eyed him warily. Lila tapped her spoon. Jamie clutched Zuri's hand. Silence settled thick. Then Jamie, wide-eyed, reached for a spoon and scooped mashed potatoes. He offered it across the table. "Here, Daddy." Keenan blinked. His hand trembled slightly as he took it. "Thank you," he whispered. Lila cleared her throat. "So, Cairo got a math award. Cairo glared. Lila. Keenan turned to him. You did. It's not a big deal, Cairo muttered. Keenan leaned forward. It is to me. Zuri watched as something shifted, an invisible line cracking open between them. For the first time they weren't just coexisting. They were beginning. Later that night, Keenan lingered in the doorway as the kids cleared the dishes. Thank you, he told Zuri quietly. For dinner? For all of it. The peace didn't last. One evening, Zuri overheard Keenan on the phone. His voice was tense, curt. Mother, you don't make these decisions for me? I said no. They're not going to boarding school. Zuri froze. Boarding school? She backed away, unaware that little ears had already heard. That night, chaos erupted. Lila slammed her bedroom door. Cairo tore a poster off the wall. Jamie cried until his voice cracked. Zuri entered their room gently. What happened? He's sending us away. Lila shrieked. You lied. Cairo shoved his homework off the table. We should have known. It was too good to last. Jamie hid under the bed. Zuri sat on the floor, heart aching. I didn't know. I promise. You're just like the rest, Cairo muttered. Pretend to care then leave. No, Zuri said firmly. I'm not leaving. But we are. Lila sobbed. We're always the ones who go. Zuri took a breath, fighting back tears. Listen to me, she said softly. Love doesn't leave in a storm. That's not love. That's fear. But I'm not afraid of your anger. Or your sadness. I can sit in both. The room stilled. I don't want to go, Jamie whimpered. Zuri pulled him into her lap. Then let's make them hear us. Later, Keenan found her in the hallway. I didn't confirm anything, he said. But they heard you. He ran a hand over his face. I don't want them to hate me. They don't. They're just scared you'll disappear. He looked down the hall. Then I won't. A week later, Zuri received an email from a prestigious international childcare foundation. They wanted to interview her for a new program launch in Geneva. All expenses paid. A dream job. She didn't tell anyone. But she printed the offer and slipped it into a book. Later that day, Lila found the paper on the bookshelf. She read it. Her heart dropped. That night, the three children stormed into Zuri's room. You're leaving? Cairo accused. Zuri blinked. What? Lila held up the letter. This. Jamie's lip trembled. Were we just your project? Zuri sat stunned. No. I didn't even decide. You weren't going to tell us? Lila said. I didn't want to worry you, Zuri explained. I haven't accepted anything. But you will, Cairo snapped. Because we're not enough. Zuri stood, voice trembling. Don't say that. You are more than enough. You're the reason I remembered who I am. Silence. Zuri knelt before them. I came here looking for a job. I found something bigger. I don't know what I'll choose. But I promise, if I leave it won't be without goodbye. Jamie crawled into her lap and whispered, Please don't go. Zuri hugged him tightly. I don't want to. Thunder rolled over the estate like a giant's growl. Jamie screamed from his room. Zuri bolted from bed and found him curled in the corner, shaking. Mommy used to hold me during storms, he sobbed. I want her. I want her. Zuri scooped him into her arms and rocked him gently, humming the lullaby. Cairo and Lila appeared in the doorway pale-faced. Zuri beckoned them in. Together, they sat in the circle of her arms, lightning casting shadows on the wall. The door creaked open again. Keenan stood there, soaking in the scene. He moved slowly, hesitantly, and sat beside them. Then for the first time he wrapped his arms around all three of his children. I'm here, he whispered. I'm not going anywhere. Jamie clung to him. Lila wept into his chest. Cairo froze, then melted into the hug. Zuri stepped back quietly. She watched a family reborn in a storm. The next morning, Keenan knocked on her door. I made a decision. Zuri braced herself. I canceled the boarding school plan. Permanently. Relief rushed through her. And if you still haven't accepted that offer, I want to ask something. She blinked. Yes. Stay. Not as a nanny. As our family coordinator. Zuri smiled. I already feel like family. The mansion changed. Laughter filled the halls. Music drifted from the living room. Zuri worked with a therapist to schedule sessions for each child. Keenan joined too, awkwardly at first, then with growing ease. One morning, Cairo ran up to Zuri holding a science trophy. I won. Zuri lifted him off the ground. I knew you would. Later, Lila danced in the garden, headphones in, waving at her father watching from the window. Jamie made friends at school. And Keenan? He started showing up. He made breakfast on Saturdays. Drove the kids himself. Watched movies, even the animated ones. One evening they all sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, watching cartoons. Keenan looked over at Zuri. This is the first time this house has felt alive since. She touched his hand gently. It's alive now. Zuri never responded to the Geneva offer. She didn't need to. She'd already found her calling. Right here, with them. The gate buzzed for the third time that morning. Zuri peeked out the living room window and groaned. Paparazzi. Again. She turned to Keenan, who sat at the breakfast table spooning cereal into Jamie's bowl. They're back. He stood, eyebrows furrowed. Let me see. Outside, a row of flashy vans lined the street beyond the gates. Journalists paced with cameras. Some shouted questions. Mr. Marshall, is it true you've hired a nanny who made your son speak again? Is she the miracle worker? Are you and Miss Okoye dating? Keenan muttered a curse under his breath. This is ridiculous. Zuri crossed her arms. How did they find out? Someone must have leaked it, he said. Probably one of my staff. She looked uneasy. The kids can't go to school like this. He nodded. I'll call security. We'll keep them home today. Inside, Lila stared out the window wide-eyed. Are they here, for us? Cairo frowned. Because of Zuri. Jamie hugged her leg tightly. Zuri crouched beside them. They're noisy, but we won't let them hurt you. You're not a headline. You're kids. And this is your home. Keenan stepped in. I've asked them to leave. Security will handle the rest. But what if they don't? Lila asked. Then we build higher walls, he said. And stronger hearts. That evening, Keenan spoke to the press. I won't entertain media interference in my children's healing. Leave us in peace. The clip went viral. But Zuri's calm composure in the background? That's what captured hearts across the country. The call came on a Wednesday. Zuri stepped into the hallway, phone pressed to her ear. Yes, this is Zuri Okoye. An interview? It was one of the biggest national TV shows. They wanted her to share her story. You helped a billionaire's son speak again. That's powerful. You've inspired so many people already, the producer gushed. Zuri hesitated. It's not my story to sell. They'd love to meet you, just you. No kids, no family details. I'll think about it. She hung up and stared at the wall. That evening, as she folded Jamie's laundry, Keenan knocked. You look troubled. She sighed. Media wants an exclusive. A big sit-down. They say the story is inspiring. He paused. Well, they're not wrong. But it's not just my story, she said quietly. It's theirs. And they're still healing. Keenan nodded. You don't owe the world your private life. I just want to protect them. He looked at her with admiration. That's why I trust you with them. The kids overheard. Later that night, they placed a drawing on her bed. It was a family portrait, Zuri in the center. Lila had scribbled beneath it. You already changed the world. Just by staying. Zuri stared at it for a long time. Then she emailed the producer back. Thank you. But I'm not the story. They are. And they deserve peace. The school auditorium buzzed with parents and students. It was speech day. Keenan adjusted his tie in the audience while Zuri straightened Lila's braid beside him. Where's Cairo? She whispered. He's backstage, Lila replied, grinning. He's doing something secret. Zuri raised a brow. Secret. Jamie giggled beside her. It's big. The principal took the mic. This year, one of our students asked to speak last minute. Cairo Marshall. Please come forward. Gasps rippled through the room. Zuri sat bolt upright. Cairo took the stage, dressed neatly, slightly nervous, but standing tall. He cleared his throat, then began. When I first came to this school, I hated everyone. I was angry. I didn't talk. I didn't laugh. I was just surviving. Parents murmured. My mom died, he said bluntly. And my dad was too sad to talk. I thought nobody would ever care again. Keenan's eyes welled. Then someone showed up. Someone who didn't run. Even when we were mean. Even when we tried to break her. He looked at Zuri in the audience. She stayed. Zuri's throat closed up. She made our house feel like a home again. She made me feel like it was okay to cry, and okay to start over. He held up a drawing, the same one he had given Zuri months ago, of a house with light in the window. This is what she gave us. Light. Applause exploded. Zuri covered her face with her hands. Keenan placed a hand on hers. "Thank you," Cairo said into the mic, "for not giving up." As he walked off the stage, Jamie leaped into his arms. Lila followed, sobbing. Zuri stood frozen until Cairo ran down the aisle and hugged her tight. "I meant it," he whispered. "You saved us." She whispered back, "No, you saved me too." It had been 1 week since Cairo's speech, and the Marshall household had never felt lighter. The once silent halls echoed with laughter. Dinners were now a family tradition. Zuri had even caught Keenan baking banana bread with Jamie, flour in his hair, a smudge of batter on his shirt, and the widest grin she'd ever seen. But tonight felt different. Keenan had asked Zuri to dinner. Alone. No kids. No staff. Just the two of them at a quiet rooftop restaurant with flickering lanterns and city lights painting the sky. Zuri smoothed her braids and exhaled as the elevator doors opened. She stepped out into the open air, and gasped. A candlelit table stood at the center of the rooftop, surrounded by potted plants and fairy lights. The skyline glowed like a river of stars. Keenan rose from the table, his smile nervous yet genuine. "You did all this?" she asked, stunned. He nodded. "With Lila's help." She insisted on the fairy lights. Zuri laughed. "Of course she did." Keenan pulled out her chair. "Please." They sat. The waiter brought 2 glasses of sparkling mango juice and left discreetly. Keenan raised his glass. To quiet beginnings that turned into loud blessings. Zuri clinked hers with his. To staying when it's easier to run. They sipped in silence, the city humming softly below. "You look beautiful tonight," he said, voice low. Zuri glanced down, bashful. "Thank you. This is more than I expected." "I wanted to say something," he said, reaching into his jacket. Her heart paused. He didn't pull out a ring box. Not yet. Instead, it was a small velvet pouch. He opened it and placed something on the table. It was a handcrafted silver ring, simple but elegant, with a small engraving on the inside. "Home is who stays." Zuri blinked, speechless. "I'm not asking for marriage," Keenan said gently. "Not yet. I know your heart is still catching up with your purpose." She let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. "But I needed to say this," he continued. "You saved my children. You pulled me out of a cave I didn't even know I was still in." He paused. "And I've fallen in love with the way you listen, the way you show up even when no one claps, the way you fight for peace without ever raising your voice." Zuri's eyes welled up. Keenan slid the ring across the table. "It's not a proposal," he repeated. "It's a promise. That I'll show up too. For them. And for you. Every day." Zuri picked up the ring with trembling fingers. "I don't know what to say." "Say whatever's in your heart." She looked up at him, then down at the ring, then back again. "I never came here looking for this," she whispered. "I was broken. Scared. And hiding behind a clipboard." Keenan smiled. "And now," she paused. "I'm not afraid anymore. I believe in us. I believe in them. I believe I want to see where this leads." She slipped the ring onto her right hand. Keenan reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "I'm not perfect," he said. "You don't have to be," she replied. "You just have to stay." Later that night, when Zuri returned home, Lila was sitting on the staircase with a blanket and her doll. "Back already?" Lila asked, eyes glinting with mischief. Zuri smiled. "Couldn't miss bedtime stories." Lila squinted at her hand. "What's that on your finger?" Zuri laughed. "A promise." Cairo appeared from behind the pillar. "So you're not going anywhere?" "Not unless I'm dragged," Zuri teased. Jamie peeked from the top of the stairs, still half asleep. "Is Zuri staying forever?" Zuri looked up at him and nodded. "If you'll have me." He grinned. "Always." The 3 children ran down and wrapped themselves around her in a hug so tight, her knees buckled. And for the first time in years, Zuri Okoye felt rooted. Not to a place, but to people. To family. Later, after tucking them in, Keenan found her in the hallway. "I meant everything I said," he whispered. "So did I." He leaned down, brushing her cheek with a kiss. "We're not broken anymore." Zuri smiled through tears. "No. We're blooming." Years passed. The Marshall estate, once a cold museum of grief, had transformed into a haven of healing, laughter, and purpose. It was no longer the house that drove away nannies. It had become a symbol of what happens when someone dares to stay, when someone loves without condition. And at the center of it all stood Zuri Okoye. Her role had grown beyond anyone's expectations. She wasn't just a family coordinator or caregiver. She was the anchor, the gentle hand that steadied a once sinking ship. She had become the bridge between a broken past and a thriving future. But today she stood on a very different stage. The large auditorium buzzed with quiet reverence. Rows of people, from therapists and educators to single fathers and grieving families, filled the seats. Cameras rolled. A banner hung across the back wall. The Zuri Project, a foundation for healing children through connection. Lila, now 15 and fiercely confident, adjusted the mic. "Before we bring her on stage," she said, grinning, "I'd like to say one thing. When I was 8, I lost my voice, not because I couldn't speak, but because I didn't believe anyone would hear me. Then she came. And I found myself again." Applause filled the room. Lila smiled proudly. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the woman who made history. Our mom, even if not by blood, Zuri Okoye." Zuri stepped onto the stage in a flowing white jumpsuit, elegant yet simple, a gold chain around her neck holding a locket with a photo of the 3 children. The audience stood. Zuri paused, heart full. "Thank you," she began. "This moment is not just mine. It belongs to every child who's been misunderstood. Every family that thought healing was too far gone. Every person who stayed when walking away seemed easier." She took a breath, scanning the crowd until her eyes landed on Cairo, sitting next to Keenan, tall and composed in a suit, arms crossed like his father used to, but with softness in his eyes now. "It started with a job," she continued. "I needed money. They needed a body. What we didn't know was that we were all starving for something far deeper: connection, belonging, safety." Her voice cracked slightly. "I walked into a house with locked doors and angry hearts. I didn't fix anything overnight. I was tested, doubted, pushed, even hated. But I stayed." She looked out again. "Not because I'm a saint, but because I saw in those children a reflection of my own pain. And I knew what it felt like to be left when you needed someone most. Silence. Thick. Sacred. Over time," she said, her voice rising, "they began to trust. Not because I was perfect, but because I was consistent. And from that trust, something beautiful bloomed. A family. A second chance. A future." Zuri placed her hand on her chest. "That's what the Zuri Project is about. We train caregivers not just to supervise, but to see, to stay, to love without needing a reward. Because sometimes the most broken children just need one person to say, 'I'm not leaving.'" The audience rose again, applause thundering through the room. As she stepped down from the stage, cameras flashing, she was met by Keenan, dressed in soft gray, no longer the armored man of yesterday. "You were incredible," he whispered. "You're biased," she replied, eyes twinkling. "Completely," he smiled, kissing her cheek. Outside the auditorium, Cairo joined her. He towered over her now, taller than Keenan, but still paused like a little boy seeking reassurance. "I've been asked to speak at a youth conference in Ghana," he said casually, shoving his hands in his pockets. "On grief." Zuri blinked. "That's amazing." He shrugged. "You think I should?" She stepped forward and touched his cheek. "I think you already know you should. And I think you'll change lives." His voice dropped. "Only because you changed mine first." Zuri pulled him into a hug. "Go make history." Later that evening at home, Jamie played the piano in the sunroom, his notes soft and confident. Lila danced in the hallway with her earbuds in, twirling in socks, her laughter echoing like wind chimes. Zuri walked to the backyard where Keenan was lighting candles for a quiet dinner beneath the stars. "You never stop surprising me," she said. He lit the last candle. "Neither do you." They sat, sharing a quiet meal beneath the same tree where the children once had tantrums, where Jamie once clung to her legs in silence. Keenan poured them both tea. "I never thought we'd be here," he said. "Not just as a family, but with you at the center of something bigger than all of us." "I didn't plan it," she said. He smiled. "That's what makes it beautiful." Zuri looked up at the night sky. "I didn't stay to make history," she said quietly. "I stayed because no one ever did for me. And I couldn't let that happen to them." Keenan reached across the table and took her hand. "You stayed," he said. "And because of that, the world changed." Inside, on the living room wall, hung 3 framed drawings. Cairo's first sketch of a lit-up house. Lila's doll with a golden crown. Jamie's heart with stick figures. Below them was a plaque. "To the one who stayed and made history." Liked it? Thumbs up, subscribe, and join the AfriHeart fam. Your support fuels our stories. Until next time.